Hello everyone, my name is Prashant Singh, and today we are going to talk about BizTalk 2020 migration. We are going to talk about why should we migrate, what are the challenges we face during migration, and what are the options to migrate. So let's start with it. So uh, yeah, so this is the agenda of our today's meeting. As I said, why to migrate? What are my migration options? There is an option called upgrade versus migrate. We'll discuss about that in detail. And we'll also talk about the BizTalk migration tool, which is developed by Microsoft internal team, right? Which is publicly available. So that tool also we'll talk. We'll discuss shortly about its shortcomings, what sort of things are missing from that particular tool, and we will also talk about our own BizTalk migration tool, which we have developed. So, which automates the migration process and reduces it to very considerable amount of time. Uh, Next, we'll also talk about how to migrate it to Azure PaaS and SaaS. And then final is, if time permits, we can kind of just see what are the new features in BizTalk 2020 and just go ahead from that. So in this call, we have Hemant and Rathore also with me, who are my colleagues and have been working on this talk from a very long time. And we will try to give a complete picture of this migration from our experience. Okay, so first thing which I wanted to discuss is why to migrate. Why should we migrate to BizTalk 2020, right? So obviously the main reason is Microsoft support. But I have worked with many customers who are still using BizTalk 2006, 2010, or 2013, which are already out of mainstream support. And even if when we talk about BizTalk 2016, that is also going to be out of support next year, right? So if you want to have Microsoft support, then there is very limited options left with us. We'll have to migrate, is that's the bottom line, right? Other thing is, when you want to kind of get enhanced BizTalk features or something, where let's say you want to um, have an environment where you want to experience hybrid integration capabilities, or you know, work with some feature packs or something. So there are many new features which are introduced in BizTalk 2020, especially most of them came from BizTalk 2016 feature packs, right? So those all also, if you want to experience, so that could be another reason to migrate, right? Similarly, if you want to simply enhance the capability of your BizTalk environment, where maybe you want to upscale it for better performance, or maybe you just want to implement better topology, like for example HANDR. So there are many reasons why people are considering moving to BizTalk 2020. Uh, Next is when we can also talk about moving to cloud. As we all know that now all the organizations, the priority is to move to cloud, and there are many benefits of moving to cloud as well, right? So the simplest option is to move to IaaS VMs, where kind of it's more like a lift and shift, where you take your BizTalk implementation from on-prem and move to Azure VMs. That is one option. So other option is to rewriting the complete code into Azure integration services, where you take the use the capabilities of Logic App Service Bus and so on. So those are the reasons which could trigger some company or somebody to migrate to the latest BizTalk 2020 options, right? Now when we talk about migrating options, once you think, okay, I have to migrate, right? So what are my options? What are my options for migration, right? So first option is, first scenario is when you, let's say, oh, you want to migrate to Azure. In that case, what are my options? So first option is obviously the as is migration, where it's more like a lift and shift sort of architecture, where you are going for IaaS sort of Azure VMs, and you are simply taking your infrastructure and moving it to cloud, where your BizTalk setups will remain same, right? So the benefit of this approach is the changes will be very minimal, because earlier those virtual machines were hosted in your on-prem environment. Now those virtual machines will be hosted in a cloud, maybe Azure or AWS, what do you say, service provider. So that is the only change. Apart from that, there will be very little changes with respect to networking and all that, but the changes are very limited. Other option could be where you talk about Azure integration services, where you may have to rewrite most of your integration. So if you have orchestrations, that may have to be replaced by logic apps. So if you have some custom code, that may have to be replaced by Azure functions. So we'll discuss about all these in detail as well later. Other option is when if you want to simply be in BizTalk 2020, right, and not to do anything with Azure. In that case, what you can do, there are two options. First option is an in-place upgrade. So what exactly is an in-place upgrade? Where you have a BizTalk 2016 what do you say, infrastructure already present. In that, you migrate it to 2020. So that will be an in-place upgrade where the systems will remain same. It will be more like a software update to your application, mobile apps, or a software update to for your, let's say, any apps like that, right? So that is called in-place upgrade, and obviously the benefits will be minimal changes and all that, right? The other option is to migrate to a new environment. So let's say you have a BizTalk 2010, 2013, or some one customer we worked with, they were still using 2006 BizTalk 2006, right? So if you are having all those options, so one option is to create a new infrastructure and move your code to latest Visual Studio 2019, and then move everything to that particular infrastructure. So that will be place where you want to migrate and improve, right? So we'll discuss about all these options. So if you want to migrate to a new environment, in that case you can you can use the MSIT tool. That is one option that will definitely speedify your process and with very minimal efforts. However, if you want to improve as well, in that case, you can go for traditional migration, where you open each and every solution into latest version and then migrate it to the latest code and all that, right? So that is our second approach. Next is I wanted to show this image so that you guys can have a better clarity about what exactly is N+ upgrade. So when we talk about N+ upgrade, that is only supported for N-1 versions. So if we are talking about 2020, then in that case, it is only possible if you have a BizTalk 2016 environment with you, right? So the moment you, and it is very pretty straightforward. And the only thing which will be required from you is you get a new MSI or new setup for BizTalk 2020 setup. And once you open it, immediately it will start showing you this option of upgrade. And the moment you click on this upgrade option, your complete BizTalk environment will be upgraded to 2020 after simple next steps. The benefit of this approach, as I said, is minimal efforts, as it is next, and most of the time there aren't any breaking changes. That is something which is Microsoft has already tested and taken care, right? So the efforts for the migration is very limited, and you get a benefit of extending your Microsoft support, right? So it is a one-click upgrade of on your existing infrastructure. But there are some disadvantages. Disadvantages are, for obviously it can be only possible for N-1 version. High risk of failure is also there sometimes. Truly speaking, we have not seen, we have seen some customers which have preferred this mode, and we didn't see much challenges in their environment. However, because you may also choose to upgrade your SQL or operating system to a latest version, or SQL to a latest version, or Visual Studio to latest version, and along with some third party. So if you go for in-place upgrade of all these softwares, there is no chance of failure, or something with something is not compatible with one another or something. So a bit risk is there for sure. As is upgrade, why I'm saying is because the infrastructure is something which will not change. So the benefit of 2020 version as such is something which may be missing in your scenario, because the reasons for migration is definitely support is one big reason, but they also want to get some more benefits from it, right? They want to get some performance related benefits, or some feature related benefits, or something else. So those options, those benefits is something which you may not be getting, right? Now the last thing is code changes uh, uh, if you want to do, let's say, because your code is still pointing to 2016 version, because you're just upgrading the runtime version of your MSIs and resources, right? So in that case, let's say if you have any change request or any update is required in the code, so in that case your code will have to be separately rebuilt to a later version, and a migration will be required for that. So this is something which could be a challenge. So, however, what we have seen is this type of migration is very few customers have done this, and they also do it for very small sort of integrations. All the big customers with which we have worked, they have always gone for a traditional migration because they expect some better performance and all that, right? Not talking about migration, where we are talking about totally new environment, right? So when we talk about migration, we take the code and we set up a parallel new environment, right? So the benefit could be migration can be done in phases. You can take your top, like some companies, they choose to start with a very easy migration. They do the POCs of migrations and all that. They move it to new applications, and they start all the new flow starts coming to the new setup, right? Similarly, after phase one migration is successful, you can plan for phase two and three and so on. Similarly, you can definitely go ahead and scale up your environment, so the new servers which you are procuring can have better infrastructure, better CPUs, better RAMs and all that. In this case, no downtimes are also required, because your parallel environments are running all the time, right? And if you can simply turn off one environment on one time, one phase, and another other could be started. For HTTP sort of, for example, for HTTP sort of receive locations, it will be simple change of what do you say, change in a load balancer, right? So those are the benefits which come with a parallel new setup. um, Similarly, if in BizTalk 2020 also, there are many things which are deprecated or simply removed. For example, SQL and SOAP, these are something which are already deprecated. So you can do those enhancements also when you talk about migration, right? The disadvantages are definitely a big guess is that, yeah, a lot of effort is kind of consumed in this process of rebuilding a new infrastructure, upgrading your code, and so on. So definitely this, and also testing, right? So these are also big advantages where some companies choose the upgrade path instead of migration, right? So however, Microsoft internal team, which was which were using BizTalk, so they came up with an approach where they developed a tool which is called BizTalk migration tool, and it is open source, means it is available on their blogs and all. And this kind of makes our work easy. What it does in a gist is, it kind of exports all the MSIs, bindings, etc., from your old environment, and then it imports into your new infrastructure. So let's say if you have two servers which are running in which are running with 2016 environment or 2013, and you have set up a new infrastructure with 2020 servers, so it will simply import or export all the MSIs and binding files from this environment, and it will do installation in the other environment. So the benefit of this approach is, let's say if you don't have any changes and you simply want to upgrade to a newer version without any changes, right? So this tool helps you a lot, because it will import all the MSIs and binding files as is migration, without almost very limited efforts, right? So this tool is very helpful. I would definitely encourage you guys to explore it once, means run it on your demo machines and see what all artifacts it is exporting, right? So it does export some size binding files, assemblies, and it also helps you export your IaaS, and many other things. So we'll see that list in next page as well. However, what are the disadvantages? Because it is an as-is migration, so one of the biggest disadvantages is your code will remain to be in the same version, because you're not touching the code at all. So your code will still be in the older version. And in case of any CR or anything, whenever you have to touch the code, you'll have to upgrade them, and then only you can reuse it in the later environment. Also, you won't be able to leverage any new features, because the MSIs are still built into the previous .NET Framework version, and you are just BizTalk is kind of built for a backward compatibility. So therefore, this tool is going to work, but all the new features when you talk about, so that is something which will not be there, right? So this is how the tool looks if you open the migration tool. And in this tool, you'll have to choose option from migrate and a backup. So I would recommend you guys to choose a backup option, so that and give here the BizTalk's source and destination details. Okay, so if you choose a backup option, in that case it will export it to some folder location or something, and there you can go and inspect that folder and see what all things it is exporting, right? So if you see, it has even capabilities to export Windows services. So if you have created any custom Windows services, that also can be exported. Folders, if you want, like many times we create some custom folders which will have let's say DLLs or some other file, our config files or something, which we want to move it as is without any changes. So this tool can do that. Same goes for app pools, websites, where if you have deployed our application as a what do you say, orchestration or schema as a web service. So those things can be exported. Similarly, some certificates and host related information also can be exported. So the benefit is, as is, it will create all the host instances there in your new environment. So this is also a very pretty good tool, but we have already discussed about the disadvantages. And these are the features, which is a very extensive list, and I would recommend you guys to go to their blog and read about it, and see what all, whether it suits your particular scenario or not, right? So next is the traditional migration, which most of us would have already done it for so many projects, and we would have seen how it works and all, right? So in traditional migrate, what we generally do, I have just kind of listed down the broad key steps which we kind of follow. So first is definitely we do create a new BizTalk 2020 environment with our desired hardware and software configurations, right? So that is the first thing we definitely do. Apart from that, when we talk about code related migration, so these are a few things which we do. So definitely we migrated to the latest Visual Studio version. In this case, it will be Visual Studio 2019, right? And second is we change for the .NET framework. So by default, when you upgrade a solution, by default, BizTalk related projects are upgraded to the latest framework. However, if you have any helper libraries or anything, so that those won't be because those are .NET projects, so those won't be upgraded to latest version. So there we go ahead and manually select the .NET framework. We also saw that BizTalk 2020 supports 4.8 .NET framework version, right? And for 4.7 version, we saw some bugs for which we opened a ticket with Microsoft, and they agreed it is a bug. But however, it was working perfectly fine for 4.8 version, and therefore for our customers, what we did is we went ahead and made all the projects 2.2 4.8 version. So that is something which we had to do for each and every project, right? Apart from that, there will be, you definitely might be using some third-party softwares or some third-party DLLs which needed to be referenced, and also you will maybe verify whether they are still valid and so on, right? That is one thing. And finally, you rebuild the code, and finally you do the testing. So these are the broad level steps we generally take, right? So what we did, we tried to automate this tedious project. So because earlier what was happening, let's say if I have 100 solutions, if our developers will have to go and open, like double click on each of solution, let it go migrate, and then perform all these steps, right? So we had to do all these things manually, and it was very tedious task for a single application if I want to migrate without any changes, excuse me. So it will take a good amount of time, and something which was very monotonous and time taking. So we thought to how can we automate it. So we saw there were some command lines which are provided by Visual Studio, using which we can perform all the steps. So first thing was to upgrade to the latest version. So what we realized, if we run this command where we use the dev env is the exe for Visual Studio, pass your solution file or project file name and simply upgrade parameters. So if we do this, the solution will be upgraded to newer. Similarly for rebuild, if we use this backslash rebuild, it will be rebuilt. Similarly, if I want to change .NET from framework, right? So there were some changes which we'll have to do in the project file. So and in our case, and not just in our case, I think most of the organizations today are talking about DevOps, right? They're interested about automated build, automated deployment, and therefore many organizations, they use either BTDF or they go for the BizTalk, the default solution which they have provided for deployment, right? So in both the cases, what you'll have to do, you'll have to create a BTDF project or a BizTalk development project, deployment project will have to be added to your solution, and then a template has to be filled properly, whether it has the schemas or not, and so on. So those things have to be filled. So these were some monotonous activities which were kind of there for each and every solution. So we kind of automated it. So if you see, what we did is we created a tool, it where we'll keep, let's say if we have for one customer, one of our customer, they were having around 800 solutions, and just imagine the sheer pain of going and opening each and every solution, migrating it to the latest version, changing the .NET framework for every project, and so on, right? It will be a very tedious process. So this solution was a one-click upgrade solution, where you browse, where you keep all the solutions in one folder, and simply give the path of that folder, and it will do the migration. So if I show you the screenshot, so this is a screenshot from our tool, where you simply need to click on the browse. It will fetch all the files. So here, if you see, it will show, it will have a very detailed logs, where it will browse and give you the list of all the solutions which were found in this application. Here you can also choose among these options, right? Where what all you want to do with these solutions. So in our cases, we wanted to migrate it, right? Or change, add a BTDF project to it, or later build it and then change the .NET framework version to particular version. So in our case, it was 4.8, right? So maybe if you want to do all these operations, simply check on all these boxes, and after that you simply submit it. So it will perform migration, it will perform the build operation, and so on. And one more beautiful thing it will do, let's say if you have 500 solutions, right? And among that, build failed for, let's say, 30 applications, 30 solutions. In that case, it is going to keep it, those failed solutions, into a different folder, so that you just have to be go to that folder, check what went wrong with those 30 applications. And what we have also done, with every file, we are creating a log file which will talk about whether it was successful, failed, or if it failed, what was the reason of it, right? So it kind of simplifies your task to a great extent. What we'll do, we'll maybe publish, we will shoot another small video where we'll just talk about this tool and its capabilities, how to run this tool. So it will be a very short 2-3 minutes video which we'll shoot, and we'll attach it, we'll add in that links in this project. Okay, so next topic which we wanted to discuss is migration to Azure PaaS and SaaS offerings, right? So many people are talking about rewriting the code into, and rewriting and redesigning into Azure offerings and Azure integration services, right? So here we do have an option. Let's say if we talk about BizTalk Message Wow, that is something which can be replaced by Service Bus. When we talk about mappings, right, our BizTalk maps can be as is put into integration account and reused in Logic Apps. Similarly, when we talk about pipelines are nothing but C# code. So those can be replaced by function apps, or can be, if there is a complex operation that can be performed in Logic Apps. For adapters, by default, Logic Apps provides you with different connectors, right? So those are the options. Similarly, orchestration is nothing but a workflow. So that is something which can be achieved by Logic Apps. If you talk about rules, BRE rules and all, so those are something which can be achieved through functions. At the end, some custom coding will be required. So, and that is not a default feature which is provided for now. When we talk about BAM is more of a tracking thing which were used, right? So for that, we will create later a video where we'll talk about production, a full-fledged production ready software, where we'll talk about BizTalk to Logic Apps migration. And there we are doing tracking through log analytics, application insights, and so on. So where you can do custom logging. Similarly, the last option was this API REST SOAP is something which can be easily managed by API management. So these are the options which we can consider. We can you'll have to in BizTalk we had one sub product to solve all the needs. Here in cloud we don't have that, but it's Azure integration services is something which provides you with all those capabilities. Okay, so next is we can talk about 2020. So 2020, as we know, definitely uh, the product life cycle, if you talk about 2016, is about to go extinct, out of support, I meant, soon. So it's and what are the changes? Obviously the platform is something which is Windows version, SQL version, and all those benefits are there, right? Apart from that, Office 365 adapters they have recently added. Similarly, Azure integrated integration related some changes are there. Logic App Service Works means this is something which is already there on the document, and you guys might go through in detail, right? But you can or maybe record stop the this video and just go through that. If you want a detailed discussion on these, we can have another session or something. So they have also worked upon security, TLS 1.2, and always encryption for SQL. This is something which is enabled. So just have a look to the features. So these are all the features which are kind of provided with BizTalk 22. So and obviously there are a few things which are deprecated, like SOAP, adapter, SQL, and this is a long list. Even BAM is something which is deprecated. So these are some points which you guys might have to think about. And in the end, I just wanted to say that if you guys have any question, please contact us. These are our individual email IDs where you can drop us questions or drop us with your queries. This is our YouTube channel. We'll appreciate if you guys can subscribe or share for our new videos. We'll try to be more regular and post more content more frequently. So I hope the session was helpful. Thanks a lot for your time, and have a good day. Bye bye.